We're moving on to monomials and binomials with section 3.2 in Algebra 2. And the first thing that we're starting with is just reminding you of just multiplying monomials. And what makes something a monomial, in case you're unaware, is that there's no addition or subtraction terms. So 3x squared is a monomial, and 5x cubed is a monomial, and the result of 15 x to the fifth is also a monomial. But I want to explain a little bit in more detail what's really happening is you're really using the commutative property where you can multiply 3 times 5 together. So just commutative is when you switch the order. Now instead of writing as x squared, I would write that as x times x, and same thing with x cubed. I hope you remember that x cubed means x times x times x. So as you simplify, yes, you are multiplying. 3 times 5 is 15, and if you have 5 x's, we write it x to the fifth. And I'm also well aware that some people, instead of saying it this way, what they'll say is that you multiply the coefficients, those are the big numbers in front, and then you add the exponents, those are the tiny superscript numbers. So if I look at the next one, I know you guys are smart enough to just look at that and say, okay, negative 2 times 7 is negative 14. Just remember that there's an implied x to the first right there, so if you add your exponents, it's x to the fourth. Same thing with the next one. Now make sure that you're only adding the exponents with the same variable. So as I look at this, a negative times a negative is positive 15, x squared, and x, that becomes x to the third, and then y to the fourth, and y to the third is y to the seventh. Now we're going to make it a little bit trickier on this last one, except it's not too bad because remember, if you're squaring something, it means to multiply by itself. So you have to square both the 4 and the x. That's why this correct answer, 4 times 4 is 16, and x times x is x squared. And if at any point you need to remember some of these rules, what you could do is just go to the internet and you could Google some of them. The next one is reminding you of the distributive property, in case you've forgotten those over the time, that you can distribute 5 into your problem, and 5 times 2 would be 10, it stays x, and 5 times 8 is 40. So where is this getting any more difficult, and it might not even be getting difficult for you, is we have 3x times 4x. We're doing the same rules as up here, that you do 3 times 4 is 12, and x times x is x squared. And in the same manner, you do 3 times 7 is 21, but don't forget about that x. So this is your perfect answer. Next one's more of the same thing, distributing in there. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is just 3x. And then this last one is important because that negative is attached to the 2x. So as I distribute that in there, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, x squared, and negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. And again, don't forget about that x in front. And then one more thing that needs to be reviewed is multiplying binomials. And you may remember this, I know we've talked about it, is foiling your first, outer, inner, last. Some teachers only explain it as distributing, because that's what you're doing. You are distributing x to each term. And notice that x times x, that's your first in FOIL, and then x times 8 is your outer. And then when you distribute 5 times x is your inner, and then 5 times 8, which we did earlier, was 40, is your last. Now notice in the directions they want you to simplify it so it looks like this, where you only have 3 terms, and right now I have 4 terms. So the correct answer I need to see is when you combine 8x and 5x together to be 13x, and still plus 40. Moving on to the next one, I'm kind of tired of this color, is distribute in there, or FOIL, whatever works for you. So we're looking at 3x times x is 3x squared, 3x times 4 is negative 12x. Now distribute 2, or do the inner, with the outer, or last, excuse me. So again, you're not done until you simplify. Negative 12 plus 2 is negative 10x, and that negative 8 stays the same. And I can do more of the same. I'm going to go back to that other color just to color code this. And I know some of you are really good at simplifying, because you might look at that outside and say, oh, that's negative 4x. Inside is negative 3x, so negative 4x and negative 3x would be negative 7x. I'm just telling you, you can do that. Just be careful in case you are bad at doing two steps at once. Okay, but I think you guys are all smart enough to do that. So same thing with the next one. We have, whoa, yep, you gotta be careful if you do too many things at once. 3x times x is 3x squared. The outside would be the 6x, that's where I was getting that number. The inside is negative 7x, and negative 7 times 2, the last term, is negative 14. So what's your final answer? 6x minus 7x is negative 1x. You don't have to write the 1 though. If you wanted to, you could, but you don't have to. That's it. So in exercise 4, this question is just asked in a different way, but you're still doing the same thing. And I think it's very important because every year I do this, somebody does it wrong. So pay close attention. Is what it means to square something actually means to multiply by itself. So don't be that student who always does this wrong, because I'll have students say, oh, okay, well 4x squared is 16x squared, and negative 3 squared is 9, and they completely forget about the outside and the inside term when they FOIL. So that is the wrong answer. So make sure you actually write it out. 4x times 4x is 16x squared, so that is right. The outside is negative 12x. The inside is also negative 12x. That's how we get answers like option 2 and option 4, not this one. And then negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. So that's why option 4 is the correct answer. We need the positive 9, and negative times a negative is positive. Option 4. Moving on to the second page of notes. This is an important thing that you actually don't need to memorize, but it helps to memorize. We refer to binomials that have x plus a number and x minus a number as conjugates. Okay, get used to me using that word. Okay, you should also be familiar with it because you'll have instructions in the homework and on a quiz or test that ask you to multiply with a conjugate. So there's a pattern that always happens, and I'm going to start by just FOILing. So x times x is x squared, the outside is negative 5x, the inside is positive 5x, and 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. So as you go to simplify, what you'll see is you could write out 0x between those, but we prefer writing it as just x squared minus 25. So I was about to say that they cancel each other out, but if you want to write 0x, you can, but 0 times anything is still 0, and adding 0 is not going to change the value of it. So if I do the same thing on the next one, again, once you notice a pattern, I'm fine if you want to jump to that pattern, but the outside term would be negative 6x, the inside term is positive 6x, and 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Again, the outside and the inside terms cancel each other out, so your answer is just negative 4. And that's what I'm going to get at when you're dealing with conjugates. So with conjugates, I'm going to write the outside, or outer, and inner in FOIL cancel. So when you get to a problem like this, it is acceptable to just do the first and the last if you're aware that the outside and inner cancel. So the correct answer to this one is 4x squared. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. And if you're still stuck on this, I would encourage you to FOIL it out and show the outer and inside cancel out. So I'll do that one more time to remind you, you can always FOIL. X times y is just xy. And it's helpful if you write it the same way. I know some of you might say negative y times x is negative yx. It's helpful to write it the same way to see things cancel. And don't forget, negative y times y is negative y squared. So that final answer will be x squared minus y squared. As I move on to the next one, notice that it does not tell you what you're multiplying x plus a by, but this word, so again, product means multiply, this word is saying, hey, its conjugate needs to be the opposite. So x plus a's conjugate is x minus a. If you notice, the pattern that we had, the outer and in there will cancel. So as you multiply out, the first and the last, you will get x squared minus a squared. But if you don't believe me, go ahead and do the full FOIL. Maybe I'll even change colors to emphasize. The outer term would be negative xa, and the inner term would be positive xa. So those two things will cancel. So you would be correct, to skip that part on this. That the correct answer is option 2. So hopefully you're getting used to this, and we can quickly come up with these answers. So before you do this, without doing the formal distributive property process, what is the final answer? So the first thing to check is, do you have conjugates? Question mark. And if your answer is yes, then you can just do the first term with the last term. Do you have conjugates? If your answer is yes, then you can just do the first term and the last term. Do you have conjugates? Yes. You can do just the first term, 4x times 4x is 16x squared, and then do the last term, 3 times negative 3 is negative 9. First term, last term. Were they conjugates? Yes. So hopefully that is helpful, because I'm eventually going to get you to exercise 8 where you can do this problem very quickly. So again, the conjugate is just the opposite. So 5x minus 3 and 5x plus 3. So as you go through the process, you only have to do the first and the last. So 25x squared minus 9. So this one you have to just think backwards, I guess. I mean, you could FOIL all of these and see what would happen. Like if you did option 1 and you FOILed it, you would have x squared plus 9x minus 4x. You do have minus 36. It's just that these things don't cancel. So it's not option 1. I could do the same thing with the next one. Option 2, x squared would be minus 6x minus 6x. Did they cancel? I mean, you didn't even get negative 36 at the end, so that one's definitely wrong. Same thing with option 3. Nothing cancels. And negative 4 times negative 9 is positive 36. So that's a bad answer. So the answer must be 4. And you could double check. The outside and the inside will cancel. So that's what is going to help you do a problem where you have conjugates like this. So that conjugate would end up being x squared minus 4. Leave it in parentheses, because as I do the next pair of conjugates, you will get x squared minus 25. But now what you need to do is FOIL here. So x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. The outside would be negative 25x squared. The inside is negative 4x squared. And then the last term, you don't need to calculate. If you have 4 quarters, you made $1, and it's positive, a negative times a negative. And I would strongly encourage you to rewrite this. Negative 25 minus 4 is negative 29x squared plus 100. And you should be ready for the homework now.